totally agree, Diane. And we're our own best advocate when it comes to our health.
Yeah.
Just because we consult with our physicians about a lot of stuff, you have to be our own advocate in order to stay on this path of a healthier lifestyle, especially as we age.
Well, hi, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Genes on QVC-HSN, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old. And today we have Chef Vanessa LaBranche, who is an expert culinary host, but also an expert in women's health. And she has golden words for us on what to do during menopause and beyond with your diet to make the journey so much easier, so much healthier, so much more accessible to good mood and good digestion. And at the end of the podcast, we will share a link where you can go to Chef Vanessa and get a fabulous, super tasty lean protein recipe, which is perfect for us girls 40 and beyond. So, welcome, Chef Vanessa.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, how did you get your culinary experience?
How did I get oh my God, we're talking a ways back. So we're talking at the tender age of 40, believe it or not. I used to be in corporate for quite a while, and I decided that I wanted to shift gears. And at the tender age of 40, believe it or not, I went to culinary school. So I went to a school in Cambridge, Massachusetts called the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts. And I completed a year program there right after full-time work. And that's how I got into it. And I kind of gravitated from that after graduating, getting into the teaching aspect of it. So I didn't really want to work in traditional kitchens. I kind of knew that off the back. I wanted to be like a chef instructor. And from there, it kind of led to me teaching healthy cooking.
So. And becoming also a nutrition coach. And so how did you then, although it kind of makes sense because you started at 40, how did you get into thinking about and having a passion for the importance of healthy eating 40 years old onwards, when we know that we are going into perimenopause and about to hit full menopause? I wish I'd had you back then. How did you get into it? Was it your own personal experience that drew you in?
I would say it was my own personal experience with that. At the age of 40, you start going through, I think that's like kind of the beginning for some folks. Some women, it's probably even earlier, I want to say that. So like I said, it's going to be very individual, but I started having some symptoms of perimenopause, heavy menstruation, food cravings, sugar cravings, some imbalances and things like that. And so it was like, okay, what is really going on with me? And then, advice from physicians wasn't really helpful. It's just they're telling you this is it. This is what you're going through. And then so it was more like being my own advocate of trying to find ways of, relieving some of my symptoms at that time. So
yeah. Now, when I'm good and I am 79, and I think because I led a very stressful, high-powered life, with success in my career, mostly depending on me being in front of a camera, I think that drove my menopausal experience even a little bit earlier. But you didn't say the word back when I got treated. And the only thing there was, and it was so revolutionary, was extension of well-being or sense of through hormones, which eventually, 30 years onward, because I took them too long and forever, led to breast cancer, estrogen-based breast cancer. Nobody, Chef Vanessa, ever talked about a helpful diet being a part of the road you take through menopause? Nobody ever talked. You either said yes or you questioned and found, sometimes you had to go find a doctor who would even talk to you about hormone replacement, much less give it to you because it was so new at the time. Honestly, how do you feel diet can aid the symptoms of menopause, which every woman dreads and wishes there was a softening solution?
It might sound like so basic, but it's true. It's really working with whole foods, nutrient dense foods. It's time to get serious about leaving out the junk.
Now,
It's really serious about that,
I will that there, my birthday was Sunday, and I don't know, eating is an emotional thing for me too, and I thought, I want cheesecake. Now I know how bad that is for me because of cholesterol. So I went ahead and ate half a cheesecake,
Mhm.
and I had very fatty red meat. Now, usually I try to be vegetarian 3 days a week at least, and then use chicken or fish as a lean protein. I got deathly ill. My body couldn't take it anymore. My body was like, oh, no, 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 no,
What are
no.
you doing, Diane?
Yeah. I also want to say that I was diagnosed with like life threatening cholesterol. And rather than accept a statin, I just took away all that stuff that I just told you I ate. And within 6 months, I had no cholesterol. So explain to me what you think nutrient dense food is and why this is so important to pre and menopausal and postmenopausal women.
Yes. Um, that's an excellent. Thank you for sharing that your experience with how food affects the body,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. And I'm going by what you just said, Diane. Like you're probably so used to having this healthy food in your body. When you try to eat these fatty foods, it tastes good going down, but then your body was like, "What is going on?" And you feel the effects of that. But nutrient dense foods at this time in life is very important because it helps with a lot of our symptoms. Whether it's having cravings and all that, it's really balances it out by by having all of our fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, having all of those can help. Seeds, nuts, legumes, having more plant-based foods are going to be able to have you in a better, just feeling better, I think, in a sense, when you have all these foods in here. And, every meal doesn't have to be meat either. It can be a little bit more plant forward in that aspect to help you with a lot of symptoms. And so it's very, very important. So say for instance, you're a person who is hungry between meals. You might not be getting enough fiber. You not be eating enough
Oh,
vegetables. You know what I mean? So if you're leaning more towards the whole foods, which is, the outer perimeter of the store, the things
yeah.
that we really need, you don't, your body's going to respond in a positive way, and you're not going to feel the cravings and wanting a lot of stuff. And so when you're kind of adapting that type of mindset and using those as a base for, more than 80, I would say 80% of the time, you want to be kind of really embracing that type of mindset, even when you're eating out or cooking at home. So
So,
very
what
important.
for somebody like me who was just diagnosed as totally lactose intolerant, and yet my vitamin D is way down on the bottom, and they said, "Oh my God, you need more." How and you're thinking, okay, I need calcium, but how am I going to get that if I'm lactose intolerant? Osteoporosis, a number one problem for postmenopausal women. How do we counter that if we don't want to be consuming heavy, creamy, lactose rich foods?
Yes, and that's an issue for. I'm lactose intolerant myself, so it's not a pleasant, not a pleasant thing to go through. But you can get calcium from other foods. So that can be found in a lot of green leafy vegetables. You don't have to have it in dairy, so you're going to find alternatives that have calcium and rich foods in it. So yes. So like this.
Ill, like, I don't, what
Yes.
kind of vegetables would provide that?
What type of vegetables? So calcium rich, like I said, spinach off the top. You might not be a spinach fan. A lot of green
What?
vegetables,
I
a
like,
lot of green leafy vegetables will have that, kale and things like that. But you have to find ways that it can be interesting and tasty and all of that. So eating more of the calcium based rich foods instead of that for people that can't do dairy. So
now it's interesting, but there is a very small group of physicians within women's health community who say if you could just put off menopause till you're about 80 or 90 years old, you'd stay healthier. I agree with that. But until then, for instance, what would we do to improve our heart health as we're going through menopause and also our sleep quality? Oh my God, that is such an issue. And when they say that menopause just goes on for the rest of a female's life, that is one of my biggest issues, is a night of uninterrupted sleep. What foods could help me and probably millions of women with that?
yeah. Well, well, like you said, heart health is very, very important, right? So we're not messing with things that is saturated fats. We know all of that because we want to kind of keep it where I know it sounds boring, right? But we're working with those fruits and vegetables. We're working with things that is heart healthy, and when we speak about they said the sleep part. The sleep part is so important, and that is really reducing our stress levels.
Yeah.
And it's really you can't get rid of stress, right? Stress is just part of life, I think.
Yeah.
And you have to do what works for you. That's a stress reliever. Because if we have stress, it's going to interrupt our sleep patterns sometimes. And then just going through menopause is disruptive, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's disruptive. And so it's about what brings you relaxation. I know you've probably heard this yoga and some type of exercise.
One thing that hit me like a ton of bricks during the beginning, middle, end, and forever onwards of menopause was weight maintenance. I suddenly craved for everything carbohydrate. I called myself a carbogenarian. I just craved it. And I only learned years later that every time you put carbs like pasta into your mouth, your saliva converts that to sugar. So I am very curious kind of why our systems go off balance and suddenly get food addicted to maybe elements of the diet that are not the greatest or are working against you. And what can you say or really give as a possible solution for weight management from 40 onwards?
Well, it's probably, I would say it's a combination of things that can help with that. So um, to help with that, with weight management, it's going to evolve around lifestyle habits also. So it would be more, like you said, reducing your stress because stress can put on weight. It could be where you need to, because the nutrition part is going to be key. So if you can do just the basic foundation of eating healthier, but then
Uh-huh.
also incorporating exercise that is more about building muscle. Okay. And so that can kind of help you to keep the weight down a little bit better by doing more of those type of exercises, trying to build a little bit more muscle and kind of reducing the cardio aspect of it. So that's kind of being important with that. So really having the basic foundation of eating healthier and maybe um, doing more of strength and building muscle, which kind of decreases as we go through menopause.
Yeah, definitely. And I did all aerobics, and yet during menopause I gained 80 pounds in the first year and a half or so. I just went
And it wasn't like you were lazy, right?
wasn't lazy. I just would say, and I've had this experience again and again, the classical Western medicine community does not give you a guide or a path to healthy aging. So I remember walking into the doctor's office. He hadn't seen me in a year, and it took about a year for me to gain that weight. And his eyes bugged out. He literally like reeled back.
Who's this?
Uh, my GP and said, get on the scale. And I said, I don't want to. I don't want to. He said, well, I'm the doctor. You're going to. And I said, well, I'm closing my eyes. And he pried one eye open and he said, look at you. You are 189 pounds. You are the definition, we're half a pound away from the definition of national obesity, and it's your choice. But then he said, okay, we're done here. He never gave me any kind of diet. And I found that really true. Honestly, when I had breast cancer in 2018, going into 2019, at least my hospital had 10 commandments of don't drink heavy alcohol and
Mm,
uh, of course don't smoke, but don't
hmm.
dairy foods, don't have red meat. Not really specific giant categories, but something to live by. But I would ask, what would be the best lean proteins to put into your diet? And are there any vegetables that are protein?
Good question. So, like you said, oldie but goodie is always the chicken breast, but we can go with things like turkey breast too. We don't always have to go with what the common stuff is, depending on people's culture, what they're used to. That is and like you said, food can be very emotional too. So, we're
Totally.
talking about a lot of aspects when it comes to women's diets and things like that. And so, some lean proteins, like I said, chicken, turkey, it could be even, like for me, I can't do a lot of beef, regardless, even if it's lean. That's just me, but some people can. I can have it maybe once a week or, a couple of times a month or something like that. But definitely things that don't have the skin on it, because that's all where
Yeah,
all the saturated fat is at. So
the only part of a chicken I'm interested in eating, this is terrible, is the skin. And when I got my
it's
DNA
good.
done, they said that I gravitated towards fat, which is so true. And I stored a lot of fat on my body, which is so true around my middle. Um, I try to force myself, for instance, to eat salmon at
Mm,
least, if not twice a week, because of the omega 3s
yes. Hmm.
and heart health. But frankly, I'm not very attracted to it unless it's in sushi, right? Unless it's Japanese raw food. But what about white fish? That a good form of lean protein?
Yes, it is. And so there's like a lot of different debates about white fish. I know like some people say they don't like tilapia because it's there's some issues about how healthy it is. So you just want to be very mindful of what type of white fish that you're having, but that's perfectly fine to have that. It's, I think for
I tilapia unhealthy. I never even heard that before.
Yeah, they're saying it's like the bottom of the ocean type of fish, and it's not the best. And yeah, I've heard this from another woman
No,
that's in.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like not eating crab or not eating shellfish. Same thing. I grew up in that culture, the Jewish culture, where you were told not to do that, but you didn't always pay attention. But somehow, when I became an adult, things like crab or lobster because I didn't grow up with it. I'm just not attracted to it.
Okay.
But I have come to find in my 79 years on Earth is that there are two schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
The regular medical Western medicine community that usually has some kind of drug for you to take that's going to bypass healthy living. Oh, don't worry about that. Just take this drug. My doctor was extremely upset that I refused statins, but I wanted to see if at my age my body would still respond quickly, honestly, to good diet, which it did. And that was very, I don't know, that was a big plus for me emotionally as well. Because it was like, okay, I'm an older girl, but I still see cause and effect.
Yes.
And that made me feel good about my health.
Yes.
What do you think about going all vegetarian? I know someone that just went 100% vegan.
Oh, vegan. Yep. Mm-hmm.
She said the one thing that was the biggest downer about it, besides the fact that I think it can get a little monotonous, is she can't even prepare enough food to eat, and she just keeps losing weight that she doesn't need to lose. So how do you come up with recipes for vegan that are healthy, but you don't have to eat this huge volume of food?
Well, one way is keeping it interesting, Diane. You got to keep it interesting with that because it can get monotonous, like you said. Um, it's funny you mentioned that because like there are some people who excel at having a vegan diet, and then there's other people they do better with protein. So this is a very individual thing, I should say. But
I tried to mix the two together and just try to be vegan a couple of days a week.
mm-hmm.
My body would totally reject eating the quantity of food I would have to eat as a vegan to get enough calories to burn during the day. I can see that I am definitely someone who would prefer a side of vegetables that had high fiber but a lean protein. And in fact, when we did the DNA, it said you should gravitate towards lean protein, but only at a maximum have lean red meat once a week, which I do not do. I do it about once a month.
Yes.
I'm a little afraid of red meat. I'm afraid of anything that, and especially if you are 40 plus as a female and you are going through that change of life and you're going to come up with hormonal imbalances constantly. Red meat and even chicken have so much estrogen in it that it will knock you even more off balance. For me, with estrogen-based breast cancer, that was the number one do not do. So I will say, look at the labels of the foods you're buying.
Yes.
It should say pasture raised, cage free, grass fed, and know that they're not listing how much hormones they put into cows, into chickens to get them to grow faster, fattier, and be able to get to the food table, where a big amount of the poundage that you're buying is due to unnatural levels of hormone.
Those are really, really good points, Diane. You just explained what's happening to our food chain and how things are being produced, but people need to know this when they're actually grocery shopping. I've noticed it over the years myself. And, you know, the advice about people saying, you know, I tell people sometimes do what you can to afford organic as much as possible, or shopping with your local, you know, farmers if you can to get produce. Produce, or even, your proteins, your animal proteins, because we should know where it's coming from.
Yeah. The other interesting thing is, at least in the New York area, but I'm sure it's everywhere across America, I don't even shop. I shop remotely. And every product I buy has ingredients, flavor, nutritional value. And I will check and see what's in there. What have they added that I don't know about? Because honestly, I think we live in a particular time when mass produced foods, you've really got to know what you're eating and not just blindly trust it. Um, when you're younger, you seem to be able to get away with so much more. But as you get older, those foods process. And I will tell you that along with being on hormone replacement for menopause for way too long, I didn't want to give up the good skin, the hair growth, the energy. Uh, I was a huge red meat eater, but never bothered. Oh, I love red meat.
Oh, okay.
I never checked it, and I never knew until I was diagnosed with breast cancer that I was eating a diet that was particularly harmful and toxic for me. So if I really have a red meat jonesing craving that I can't put away, it's just in my brain, the salty minute of the day, I will always go for organic grass
Yes.
fed. People ask me all the time, yeah, is organic really true? Well, I'll tell you what, until somebody proves it untrue,
Right.
knowing the amount of chemicals that get sprayed on vegetables and foods, and I'm in an urban environment, I'm not able to self grow and farm and then choose my vegetables. You've got to sort of trust organic. And is that the way you cook for yourself?
You know what? I'm glad you pointed that out all out, Diane, because like you said, you have to have it. And I like to do organic as much as possible, which I can afford, because like you said, you have to trust something. I mean, especially
Yeah,
if you live in an urban environment. If you're lucky enough to live somewhere more rural, of course, you have better options than folks like us living in a major city.
yeah.
But definitely organic as much as possible, and I think that's really going to be key with, especially like you said, with the chemicals and people that probably that are, I don't want to say this to people out there, but if they're vegan or vegetarian, they think that they're just eating vegetables or following a strictly vegan diet. But if they're not watching how those are being produced, they can still have some health issues down the road. So, you still have to be mindful of where things are coming from, how they're being produced, and what they're being sprayed with, possibly,
I
that can.
eat from local farms as much as I can. And food source I use, which is Fresh Direct in Manhattan and I think the tri-state area, will tell you it's this farm. They'll do a highlight. It's a
Never
family.
heard of that. Okay.
Yeah, it's this or it's that. But I know that people make choices all the time for what's convenient or where their taste level goes. And somebody told me as we conclude this podcast to just take a trip and walk into a very popular market that had just opened in Chelsea, which is below Midtown.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, all right, you walk through the front door. What do you notice? I said, I notice that everything, the corridor you walk through to get to what you call the perimeter of the market, which is vegetables and then, proteins, live proteins, it was all mass produced chips and dips on both sides that appeal to people that have grown up on mass produced foods and were terribly unhealthy. But you are given those visuals all the time. And you know what? Almost every time I'm the sucker. I will chose fried cheese balls, and I don't think they're air fried corn cheese balls, and I don't think they're very healthy for you. But I think they're the healthiest of the poor choices. So I went for the best of the poor choices, but otherwise,
We're bombarded.
yeah, we are so bombarded with mass production and so far away from our original food sources. Like if you're a kid today, chances are your idea of great chicken is Chick-fil-A. We don't know where that comes from. We don't know whether it's corn-fed or grass-fed. We don't know whether it's cage-free
Right.
or produced under very stressful conditions for the chicken that bring all this cortisol up and they've got all of these hormones going that are about endangerment and not liking your environment and being too close to your chicken neighbor and you know, I honestly say today nutrition is something where you really need to take the time, I'm hoping you agree, to being well informed.
Totally agree, Diane. And we're our own best advocate when it comes to our health.
Yeah,
Just because we consult with our physicians about a lot of stuff, you have to be our own advocate in order to stay on this path of a healthier lifestyle, especially as
yeah,
we age.
yeah.
So
And I would be shocked if most of America, including me, really knows what a super healthy lifestyle is. But we're going to know because at the end of this podcast, and we're saying goodbye now, you're going to be able to get a link to one of Chef Vanessa's favorite recipes that is all about lean protein, Mediterranean eating, which is so heart healthy and therefore so menopause friendly. So hang in there, ladies. Menopause is a path we all wind up taking, and doing it optimally and being your own best friend during menopause is absolutely your best solution. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
thank you, Diane. It's been a pleasure being here on your podcast. This has been
But
awesome.
thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.